I stared at the envelope in my hands like it held a live grenade. In a way, it did. The DNA test results inside had the power to blow my entire life apart, or settle the storm that had been building in my mind for months. My palms were sweaty, heart pounding like it was trying to break through my chest. I had taken the test in secret, never thinking I'd actually follow through. But here I was, 3 envelopes, 3 names, 3 chances to either prove myself wrong or right. I opened the first one, my eldest daughter, Emma, 9 years old, my little girl with the big brown eyes and the love for animals. I read the result. I stopped breathing. My hand shook as I reached for the second envelope. Liam, my middle child. He had my crooked smile. Or so I'd always believed. The third envelope was the hardest. Ava, the youngest, just 5 years old. Daddy's girl, always climbing into my lap, saying, "You're the best daddy in the world." All 3. None of them were mine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the papers, my world crumbling quietly around me. I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled, distant, surreal. My mind tried to come up with explanations. Maybe the lab made a mistake. Maybe there was some glitch. But deep down, I already knew. I had known for a while. I heard the front door open. Her voice rang out from the hallway. "Babe?" I picked up dinner. "Want Thai or pizza tonight?" She walked into the living room, plastic bags in hand, smiling like nothing had happened, like everything was fine. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had loved for over a decade, the woman I had married, supported, built a family with, the woman who had just looked me in the eye last week and told me I was being paranoid and insecure. I held up the papers. "They're not mine," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "None of them are mine." She blinked, just once, then set the bags on the table. "Are we really doing this right now?" she said, not even bothering to look at the documents. "Don't be dramatic." Those 3 words. Don't be dramatic. She said it like I had lost a bet, like I was overreacting to some minor inconvenience, as if I hadn't just discovered that the children I raised, loved, sacrificed for, weren't even mine. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, not in violence, but in clarity. That moment changed me. I realized she didn't regret what she did. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't even feel sorry. To her, I was just a convenience, a safe bet, a steady paycheck, a warm body in the house. But I wasn't going to be any of that anymore. No, if she thought I was being dramatic now, she hadn't seen anything yet. She lied for years. DNA exposed her, and I was going to make damn sure she regretted it. We weren't always like this. If someone had told me 10 years ago that our marriage would crash and burn in the ugliest way imaginable, I wouldn't have believed them. Back then, she was everything I ever wanted. Funny, smart, confident. She had this wild, spontaneous energy that made my calm, quiet life feel like a color again. I was a steady guy, routine, practical, reliable. She called me her anchor, and I liked that. I thought we balanced each other out. We met at a mutual friend's engagement party. I was there out of obligation. She came because she heard there'd be free wine. We spent most of the evening joking about how fake everyone seemed, both of us out of place in the same way. We clicked instantly. A few months later, we were inseparable. The first year was a whirlwind. Late-night drives, lazy weekends, sex that didn't feel transactional or rehearsed. When she found out she was pregnant just a year into dating, it wasn't planned, but it didn't feel like a disaster either. We were already talking about marriage, and this just sped everything up. I proposed. She said yes. We had a small wedding, nothing flashy, just close friends and family. It felt right. Emma was born 6 months later. I remember holding her for the first time and thinking, this is it. This is what life is supposed to be. I was a father, a protector. I promised myself I'd never be like my own dad, who walked out when I was 7. I would be there for every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every school recital. The next few years were a blur of diapers, sleepless nights, and career moves. I worked long hours to give us a better life, upgrading apartments, saving for a house. She stayed home with the kids, said she wanted to be the kind of mom who was always around. I respected that, supported it. Liam came 2 years later. Then Ava after that. I remember looking at our family of 5 and feeling genuinely happy, exhausted, sure, but fulfilled. I thought we were building something real, something that would last. But now, looking back, I can see how little I actually questioned anything. There were moments, small ones, that should have made me pause, like when she'd go out late with her girls, but come back acting strange. Or when I'd find unfamiliar numbers on her phone, and she'd brush them off as spam. She had a way of making me feel guilty for even asking. I started believing I was the problem. Too controlling, too paranoid, too insecure. She was always good with words. Better than me. Anyway, when we argued, she had this way of flipping things, twisting my concerns into accusations, then turning the whole argument around. So I was the one apologizing. I hated conflict, so I let it go again and again for years. But it wasn't just her. I wanted to believe so badly in our family that I blinded myself to the cracks forming all around me. Friends tried to hint at things, subtle comments about how much the kids didn't look like me, or jokes about how she was always busy when I wasn't around. Even my mother once asked gently if I ever wondered about the kids. I brushed her off, offended. Of course they're mine, I said, and I believed it. I believed it because I needed to, because admitting anything else would mean unraveling the very foundation of my life. So I kept showing up. School drop-offs, birthday parties, doctor's appointments. I loved those kids. I still do in some way. I was there for all their first steps, first words, first scraped knees. I was their father in every way that mattered, except apparently biologically. It's hard to describe what it feels like to have your entire reality pulled out from under you, to realize the person you trusted the most had been lying to your face for nearly a decade, that the life you built was a performance, and you were the only one who didn't know it was a play. But back then, in those early years, I was happy. Or at least, I thought I was. That illusion would soon shatter. And once it did, there was no going back. The first time I had a real doubt, it was over something so small, so ordinary it should have meant nothing. Emma had gotten sick, just a bad cold, but the doctor asked about family medical history. As I went over mine, my wife interrupted and corrected me, said something like, "No, babe, remember? My dad had asthma, not yours." I just smiled at the time and brushed it off as a slip-up. But that night, it stayed with me. Why would she mix that up? Why was she answering questions about my family like she was covering something? The seed was planted. Then came the little things, the physical differences I never paid attention to before. Emma's eyes were darker than mine or hers. Liam had a nose that didn't look like either of ours. Ava had curly hair that didn't run in either side of our families. It was subtle, easy to explain away. But once you start noticing things like that, you can't unsee them. It wasn't just the kids, either. My wife was always glued to her phone. She'd text with the screen tilted away, take calls in the other room. Late-night girls' nights became more frequent. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and find her still not home, or claiming she fell asleep at friends. Once, I asked her straight out where she'd been. Her answer was too smooth. No hesitation. No stutter. Almost like she had practiced it. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I kept reminding myself that she was the mother of my children, my wife, my partner. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just burned out from work, from life. After all, what kind of man's suspect his wife of lie about the paternity of their kids? But it kept eating at me. One afternoon, Liam came home from school with a science worksheet about genetics. He was so proud to show me what he learned about dominant and recessive traits. He pointed at his eye color and said, "Mom says I got these from her friend Uncle James." I froze. Uncle James wasn't my friend. He was hers, a guy from her college days she still kept in touch with, the kind of guy she swore was like a brother. I laughed it off with Liam, but my hands were shaking. That night, I tried to bring it up to her. She rolled her eyes and said James was just someone who babysat once when I was out of town. "You're being ridiculous," she said. "They barely even know him." But I knew that wasn't true. I remembered the way she used to light up when he texted, the way she'd delete messages, or get weirdly defensive if I asked about him. And now my son, our son, was casually dropping his name in a conversation about DNA. That night, after she went to bed, I sat in the living room staring at old photos on my phone. Pictures of me holding the babies in the hospital, birthday parties, vacations, family portraits. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a stranger in my own story. I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. I couldn't just keep pretending nothing was wrong. I decided to do something I never thought I would. I ordered a DNA test kit, then another, one for each child. I told myself it was just to put the doubts to rest, to clear my head, to shut off the noise that had been building for months. But deep down I knew, I think I always knew, and once I opened that door, there would be no going back. The kits arrived in a plain brown package, no logos, no markings, nothing that would raise suspicion. I hid them in the garage until the perfect moment. I felt like a criminal in my own home, sneaking around like I had something to be ashamed of. But I wasn't the liar. I wasn't the one who had turned our marriage into a stage play. I was just a guy trying to find the truth in a life built on lies. Getting the samples wasn't hard. The kids thought it was a fun little game. "Open wide," I said with a smile, gently swabbing the inside of their cheeks. "Daddy's doing a science experiment." They giggled. No suspicion. No fear. If only they knew. I sent the tests out the next day. Overnight shipping. Priority processing. I didn't want time to change my mind. While I waited, I went through the motions. Work, dinner, bedtime stories. But everything felt distant. Hollow. Like I was watching someone else live my life. My wife didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. I checked the tracking link obsessively. When the email finally came, "Your results are ready," my stomach dropped. My hand hovered over the mouse for a full minute before I clicked it. I wasn't ready, but I had to know. Emma, 0% probability of paternity. Liam, 0% probability of paternity. Ava, 0% probability of paternity. 3 for 3. I stared at the screen. Numb. I read the results again. And again, like if I kept reading, the words would magically change. But they didn't. They just stayed there. Cold, clinical, final. None of the children I had raised, loved, protected, provided for were biologically mine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt nothing and everything all at once, like my body was trying to shut down to protect me from what my mind was finally accepting. My thoughts raced. Who were their fathers? How long had she been cheating? Did she even know which man fathered which child? Had any of our marriage ever been real? I sat there for hours, paralyzed by disbelief. Then I heard the front door open. She was home, laughing on the phone with someone. Her voice breezed through the house like everything was perfectly normal. I printed the results. All of them. Stapled each one. Waited until she came into the kitchen, still chatting on her phone, keys dangling in her hand. I slid the papers across the counter. She looked down. Read the top of the page. Then looked back up at me, unbothered. "Are we really doing this?" she said. "Don't be dramatic." That was it. That was her response. Not shock, not guilt, not even fear. Just annoyance. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain. She didn't ask for forgiveness. And in that moment, something inside me broke, but not the way she expected. I didn't lose control. I didn't yell or threaten or fall apart. I went quiet, calm, because I finally understood who I was dealing with. She hadn't just lied to me. She had betrayed me in the deepest, most unforgivable way, and felt nothing. She thought I would swallow it, like I always had. She thought I'd let it slide. But she had no idea who I became the moment I opened those envelopes. The man I used to be, the trusting, naive fool, died the second those results loaded. What came next would be the part she never forgot. I didn't say much to her that night. Just a quiet, I need space. I slept on the couch, not because I was heartbroken, but because I needed time to think. Real thinking. Cold, rational planning. No emotion. No confrontation. No messy drama. She thought I'd break down, that I'd scream, cry, beg for an explanation. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. I gave her silence. And silence, I knew, was the most dangerous thing I could offer. The next morning, I went through our financials. Every bank account, credit card, savings plan. I quietly moved half of our joint savings into a separate account under my name only, legal in our state, just in case. I also pulled copies of everything, bank statements, text records, emails. I wanted a clear trail of our life together, and more importantly, everything she'd done to destroy it. Then I hired a private investigator, not because I needed more proof. Hell, the DNA tests were already the nail in the coffin, but I wanted to know everything. How long she'd been cheating, who the real fathers were, how many times she lied to my face while calling me paranoid. The investigator didn't take long. Within 2 weeks, he delivered a thick folder. Photos, text logs, even videos. She had been sleeping with at least 3 different men over the years. Some flings, some ongoing. One of them, Uncle James, had been a consistent presence during both Liam and Ava's early years. It was a punch in the gut, but at least now I had the truth. And with the truth came power. I went to a lawyer, one of the best in town, explained everything, showed him the DNA results, the investigation file, and outlined what I wanted. I want a divorce. I want out. I want to be free of her. And I don't want to pay a single cent in alimony or child support. Not when those kids aren't mine. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. You have everything you need. This is going to destroy her in court. Good, I said, but court wasn't enough. She didn't just steal years from me. She made a fool of me. And when I found out, she mocked me, called me dramatic, like I was overreacting to the complete collapse of my life. She deserved more than just legal consequences. So I made one last call, this time to her job. Did you know some companies take moral clauses very seriously? She worked for a family-oriented brand. She was a social media manager, constantly preaching about loyalty, honesty, and building trust. I sent an anonymous package, copies of the investigation, the DNA tests, screenshots of her hypocrisy in action. She was fired within a week. Then came the divorce papers. I didn't hand them to her myself. I made sure she got served at her sister's baby shower, surrounded by family and friends. The same people she lied to, over and over again. The same people who once called me lucky to have her. Now they knew the truth. I didn't stop there. I posted a simple message on social media. No names, no direct accusations. Just the facts. After years of lies, I discovered none of the 3 children I raised were biologically mine. DNA doesn't lie. People do. The truth always comes out, eventually. I didn't need to say her name. Everyone figured it out. She tried to call, left voicemails. Angry at first, blaming me for embarrassing her. Then came the pleading. We can fix this, she said in one message. You're still their dad. No, I wasn't. I had been a dad, but never their dad. Not by blood, and not by choice anymore. I blocked her number. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had everything I wanted. No alimony, no child support, full legal disassociation. The court acknowledged that I had been deceived on a fundamental level, and that she had manipulated me for years. Her life unraveled. No job, no husband, no financial safety net, and 3 kids with 3 different unknown fathers. Her friends disappeared. Even her own sister distanced herself. She thought I'd be the one broken, but she underestimated me. I didn't destroy her with rage. I destroyed her with facts, with strategy, with truth. She lied for years. DNA exposed her, and I made damn sure she regretted it. The day of the divorce hearing, she showed up looking nothing like the woman I once married. Not physically. She still had that same face, the same confident walk, but her eyes were different. hollow, nervous. For once, she didn't have the upper hand. She tried to smile at me across the courtroom, like we were two people working through a misunderstanding, like we were still somehow equals in this mess. But I didn't smile back. I barely looked at her. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was just another person who used me and thought she'd never be caught. Her lawyer tried to argue for compassion, for shared assets, for co-parenting. He claimed I had acted as a father and thus had emotional and financial responsibility for the children. It was a desperate strategy, and it failed miserably. My lawyer didn't even need to say much. He handed the judge the DNA results, the PI's file, and a copy of our state's paternity fraud statutes. It was airtight. When the judge read the DNA findings out loud, I watched her flinch. It was the first real reaction I'd seen from her since the truth came out. Not guilt, not regret. Shame. Maybe it was because this time she couldn't gaslight her way out of it. This wasn't me being dramatic. This was science. Cold, undeniable truth. The courtroom was silent, except for the judge's voice as he ruled in my favor. Divorce granted. No spousal support. No child support. No further legal obligation to the children. It was over. When we walked out of the courthouse, she followed me to the parking lot. "This doesn't have to end like this," she said, her voice low. "You still love them. You know you do." "I did," I said, "but they were never mine to begin with. You made sure of that. You're abandoning them." She snapped, voice suddenly sharp. "You're a coward." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because she was right, she wasn't, but because part of me still did love those kids. How could I not? I had kissed every scraped knee, helped with homework, stayed up for fevers and nightmares. I was their dad, even if biology said otherwise. But she took that from me, not the DNA. Her, by lying, by letting me believe a lie for years. She stole the chance of me to make informed choices. She forced me into a life under false pretenses. And now she had to live with the consequences. "You stole my choice," I said quietly. "Now I'm taking it back." Then I got in my car and drove away. The fallout hit her fast. Without my income, her lifestyle collapsed. The house was in my name. I sold it. She had to move into a small apartment with the kids, juggling 2 part-time jobs and no support. Her social circle, once full of moms who looked up to her, disappeared. No one wanted to be friends with the woman who lied to her husband and dragged 3 innocent kids through her mess. Worse still, the rumors about multiple fathers, fueled by my single, carefully worded social post, spread like wildfire. People talked, judged, whispered behind her back. Her perfect image shattered beyond repair. And me, I got quiet peace. I stopped waking up with anxiety. I stopped second-guessing everything. I started going to therapy, working out, picking up the pieces of a life that had been built on lies. I wasn't looking for revenge when I first took those DNA tests. But once the truth came out, I promised myself I wouldn't let her walk away without consequences. She thought I'd be the fool forever. She thought I'd still take care of kids that weren't mine. She thought I'd stay quiet, like I always had. She was wrong. Life after the divorce wasn't easy, but it was honest. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. I moved into a small apartment, not nearly as nice as a house I had sold, but it was mine. Just mine. No lies, no secrets hanging over me. I focused on myself for the first time in a long time. Therapy helped more than I expected. It wasn't about blaming her anymore. It was about healing myself, rebuilding my sense of worth that had been crushed under the weight of betrayal. People asked if I regretted anything. The truth? I regretted wasting years living a lie. Regretted trusting someone who didn't deserve it. But I didn't regret the revenge. Not one bit. It gave me power, closure, proof that I wasn't a victim. I kept in touch with my mom more often. She had been my only quiet supporter throughout the ordeal, even if she never pushed me to find out the truth. Sometimes she'd just listen while I talked through the pain and anger. Having someone who believed me made all the difference. The hardest part? The kids. Emma, Liam, and Ava. I'd been their dad in every way but blood. Walking away felt like abandoning them. But I told myself the truth was better than a life of lies. If she wanted to be their mother, she had to take responsibility, fully and honestly. They called a few times after the divorce, voices confused, sometimes scared. I never shut the door completely. I told them I loved them, but I couldn't be their dad anymore. It was brutal. It still is. But I also realized they deserved a life without deceit, a chance to grow up knowing the truth, not living in the shadow of lies. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into projects, promotions, learning new skills. Slowly, I rebuilt my confidence, not just as a professional, but as a man who refused to be defined by betrayal. I surrounded myself with friends who lifted me up, people who reminded me what trust and loyalty really meant. Sometimes I wonder how different things could have been if I trusted my instincts sooner. If I hadn't let "don't be dramatic" silence my doubts. But then I remind myself that life isn't perfect. We make mistakes, we get blindsided, and sometimes the truth hits harder than we ever imagined. What matters is what we do after. I'm not the man I was before. I'm stronger, wiser, more cautious, but also more willing to stand up for myself. The experience broke me in some ways, but it also set me free. And as for her, I don't know where she is now. No desire to find out. Her choices shattered the life we built. She lives with that. I live with the truth. DNA exposed her. And in the end, the truth was the only revenge I needed.